The Israelis have been hammering Beirut, Tyre, Sidon, and Nabatea. A lot of the larger towns are just getting crushed up there. And there's not a huge death toll by and large, considering how much ordnance they're dropping, because they are warning the people to leave beforehand. If you go to chuckholton.com, you'll see some videos I've been putting up of some absolutely fantastic explosions. And you wonder when you watch those things, how did they know where to point the camera? Because it's a missile coming in. They knew where to point the camera because the IDF warned them ahead of time. So they all got out of the building and they stand back and film it with their phones and get some spectacular footage of the IDF really taking it to Hezbollah. They are finding more and more underground tunnel complexes. They're finding more and more rocket launchers. They're finding lots of command posts and things like that. And they are meeting some resistance. But contrary to what some reporting has said, uh, they're not losing a lot of troops in the north. They have lost some. They lost 4 yesterday, and that was a big day, a terrible day for the IDF. But for fighting Hezbollah, the largest non-state military actor on planet Earth, that had, they said, 100,000 fighters and lots of materiel, even tanks and stuff, although they haven't put them to use because I think they're in Syria right now. But with all of what could have happened in Lebanon, they're not meeting that much resistance. And they are very quickly accomplishing their objectives of driving out the Hezbollah fighters from south of the Litani River and creating a buffer zone. In Lebanon, the United States has been putting together a ceasefire proposal with Russia. The United States and Russia are working together to put together a ceasefire proposal that they're going to float to the Lebanese government and to the Israelis and the remnants of Hezbollah. Uh, that's probably why they brought the Russians in on this, because the Russians are the only ones that probably have much contact with those guys. I'm sure the Lebanese military does. Unfortunately, this ceasefire proposal sounds like a good idea, but it's really dead on arrival, because what it calls for is the prime minister of Lebanon said what we could do is recruit another 100,000 soldiers for the Lebanese army and put them down south of the Litani River. They would agree to dismantle what's left of Hezbollah infrastructure down there and then keep Hezbollah out. And they would be the peacekeeping force as a buffer between the Israelis and Hezbollah. The Israelis would then agree to pull out south of their back into Israel and everybody be happy. The problem is, where do you think they would get those 100,000 Lebanese soldiers? They would probably recruit what's left of Hezbollah to be Lebanese soldiers, because about half of the Lebanese soldiers are already pretty close kin to Hezbollah. They either have family in Hezbollah or they themselves moonlight with Hezbollah. So that would be basically hiring the fox to guard the hen house, and wouldn't work out too well. It would also require the Syrians to stop the Iranians from moving weaponry, missiles and rockets across Syria into Lebanon. And if you trust Bashar al-Assad to do that, you're insane. If he could or would do that, he would have already been doing that. It does give Israel the right to continue to strike at Hezbollah targets if they pose a threat to Israel. And that's a nod to the Israelis, but I don't see that really going anywhere. We'll have to wait and see. Now, let's get to what's happening in Gaza, because this is amazing. Israelis had upwards of about 70,000 troops in Gaza at the beginning of the invasion. Now they're down to about maybe 10,000, 15,000, maybe less. That's a guess on my part. And if I knew the exact number, I wouldn't tell you the exact number. But everybody knows that Israel has pulled most of their troops out of Gaza by now and has moved them all up to the northern border, expecting a much more difficult fight up there. And so, as they have done that, you haven't heard a ton about what's going on in Gaza. So, the IDF has been working in Gaza down in the south in Rafah. And then after they got Yahya Sinwar, they finished up that operation. And then everybody expected them to move back to the central part of Gaza because that's where they expect that any living hostages are still being held. Maybe because that's what everybody expected them to do, they didn't do it. They actually, you could say, a lightning maneuver, raced 2 routes north and surrounded the Jabalia refugee camp. They had gotten some intelligence that Hamas was reforming their remaining troops in Jabalia and was rearming, refitting, and preparing to fight longer against the Israelis. So the Israelis went up and surrounded the whole area. And there were still about 60 to 100,000 Palestinian citizens in that area, even though they had been told to evacuate. There were a lot who didn't. And what they're doing then is they're fighting anybody who wants to fight. And there's plenty of people that want to fight. Apparently, in the last month, they have liquidated over 1,000 people who were slinging lead at them. The IDF has been doing a very good job at compartmentalizing the war in Gaza. They surround an area. Now that they have destroyed the majority of the tunnel systems, it's very difficult for the militants in the midst of the civilians to hide. So they basically tell everybody, okay, you can leave this area, but you have to leave through this checkpoint. As you leave, we're going to check every single person that comes through the checkpoint. Most of the people they talked to were actually just like, you know what? We are so done. We want it to be over. We hate Hamas. We just want Israel to finish them off so we can go back to our lives. Please hurry up and get this over with. And one of the reasons why I think that's happening is because Israel has been slow rolling some of the aid into that area. Now, they are allowing aid in there and feeding the people. They are giving water to the people. You'll see in the video where the Israelis are passing out water to people that are thirsty. But they are maybe not allowing unfettered access by the aid organizations left, like the Red Crescent in Gaza, to the Jabalia refugee camp specifically because they are putting the squeeze on it. The whole point of us doing this is to squeeze the Hamas fighters until they cry and then they will give up or die. And that's exactly what's been happening. They have been capturing hundreds of Hamas fighters in this area. They've been doing a great job. And they've had not only hundreds that have uh, surrendered, they have liquidated over 1,000 in that area. We have seen a lot of videos coming out. Obviously, I can't show them to you on YouTube of Hamas operatives treating Palestinians in extremely painful things to these Palestinians who they catch, like eating food or grabbing some aid to take to their families. They actually meet some Palestinian men on crutches. These men are like in tears and they are just so angry. And they're like, Hamas did this to us. All I did was grab some food to try to give to my family and they shot me in the leg. That guy over there, they shot him in the leg too. That's what they do to people that they don't like. And the reporter even mentions it. He says, when you look around at these people, there are so many people who are handicapped. They are angry and they're ready for it to be over. One of the things that you hear them say a lot is, we want the Israelis to govern this area. We want to come back here and we want to live under Israeli rule. Why? And the reporter asked them, why do you say that? And they say, because the Israelis are civilized. They're the only ones that give us food. They're the only ones that give us water. They're the only ones that take care of us. They don't try to torture us all the time. They are actually much, much better to us than our own government of Hamas. Guys, this is a massive shift. You know what this says, folks? It says that Israel is doing the right thing. Israel is doing what it takes to win the war, because these people are ready to surrender unconditionally. They're ready to submit to Israeli rule for the rest of their lives. They are done. And that's what you want. Their tune has changed dramatically from ululating over every rocket launch that went out toward Israel to going up and hugging and kissing Israeli soldiers and begging them to finish off Hamas. We are getting serious about running a trip to Panama. So if any of you are interested in learning more about being an expat, what it takes to have a second home outside the United States. I still have a home in the United States, but our bona fide abode is in Panama, where it's not going to be a tour of Panama per se. It's going to be come to Panama and relax at a beautiful 5-star resort up in the mountains where it's nice and cool and shady. And we'll go for a few hikes, sit around and talk, have some amazing food, and do that for 4 or 5 days. We've already reserved an entire hotel for that. And it'll be just like the Chuck Holton getaway and reboot for you sometime around the beginning of next year, probably March, April timeframe, actually. So more like spring break time. If you're interested in coming to Panama, it'd be a pretty affordable trip. And so all you have to do is send an email to my daughter. She's at Amy at holtonnews.com. Amy at holtonnews.com. And you can start emailing me now at chuck at holtonnews.com. The flight from Florida to Panama, it is 2.5 hours. Not bad. From Miami to Panama, under 3 hours. Panama's got a great airport and a lot of great things about this country. If you want to learn more about it, we're looking at April. We only have very limited space on this. If we're going to open it up, it's going to go quick, I promise, because I think we only have 9 rooms or something in this little boutique hotel. Absolutely gorgeous. One of our favorite places to go eat here in our little valley where we live. So if you want to come hang out with us and our monkeys, that trip to Panama is coming up April-ish. And we'll put out more information about that shortly.